do slow down the aging process. I can't see anything wrong with her right now. She's, she's fit and healthy and eating well, and her poop is good, and her fur is great, and her attitude is strong. And but I'm just starting to see a little bit of a slowing down. What is, and here was the question, is there anything I can do about that? And I was like, is there what things you can do about that? And here's the thing, when you start to weave those in preventatively in advance, right, then you don't get that, oh my gosh, crisis moment, I've had a diagnosis, this is all fallen apart, she's broken, whatever. So just being truly mindful of prevention rather than trying to put out fires all the time.
So this was essentially the first person who's really ever come to you saying, I want to take a preventative approach. And you're like, yes. I'm sure that was a huge win moment. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that it wasn't prevention because she was starting to see symptoms, but it really is, because it's like, my guess is that if her, this was a dog, right, that she was,
yeah.
If her dog is like doing really amazing and she noticed a tiny little thing, most people would just be like, okay, that's just what happens. Or they might not even notice it, but she's like, nope, preventative. I see how amazing, they've been in their health, and I want to keep it that way. Whereas most people don't actually start making big moves until there's a pretty serious diagnosis or symptom or something happening. It's not to say that like people don't take little steps. Sure, they do. But most people don't really get in gear until there's something staring at them. And they know that if they don't, that there's kind of an ultimatum, right? They know what the outcome is going to be. I definitely see this on the human side too. I've only ever had one person come to me preventatively. I think this is
just one.
I'm trying to really think back. I worked in, I say this often, but before I became a healthcare practitioner, I worked in fitness. And even then, people weren't coming to me for like, oh, I just want to really get healthy and like start exercising because I know it's good for me. No, people were never doing that. So I had one person come to me in my private practice for preventative. And you know what's interesting about this? It was actually his brother that reached out to me and said, hey, I want my brother to meet with you preventatively because I want to make sure he's healthy. And so the brother actually helped pay for this man to meet with me one-on-one and do like some preventative stuff and really just kind of optimize. And that's so interesting because in both of these scenarios, you have someone advocating for the other individual to get the preventative work. I mean, obviously a dog can't really advocate for itself to get the preventative work in that scenario, but like on the human side, it's like, it goes back to the fact that we find it hard to prioritize ourselves. And for most people, they're not going to actually do big things for themselves until it gets pretty severe. So that's kind of interesting.
Do you know that concept of nomination, right? I nominate my brother kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That just made me think, do you remember shows like Queer Eye and other like makeover type
I love Queer Eye. For folks listening, I am a total Queer Eye stan. I love it.
But it's like here, like my colleague or my best friend or my mom or my whatever, right? They're such a noble, good, kind, generous, loving person, but they're letting themselves down because they're not paying attention to this. They're not looking after themselves. They have had surgery and it went wrong and there was this, right? Whatever the story is, but you're nominating somebody to then have this sort of 5-star treatment to get life reinvigorated or back on whatever the thing is, right? But that's what it sounds like here. This brother, out of love, is reaching out and saying, hey, I care for this person so much and I can see where potential is lying, and they're not doing it by themselves or they don't know how to do it by themselves or whatever, but you can tap into that for them, gift them that amazing response. And I mean, yes, I want literally an army of pet parents having this mindset and saying, I love them. I love my fur kids. I love right. And I'm advocating for them to have that life free of the 5 major killers. Like, I mean, who wants their dog to get cancer, right? Nobody adopts and says, oh gosh, I hope you get cancer in 3 years, right? So
and yet, what is it? 1 out of every 2 dogs gets cancer.
Yeah. It's more than that now. At one point,
cancer.
Yeah, it's almost every dog now. It's 1 to 1.65 or something like that. Like, it's just it's crazy. The numbers are just ridiculous, right? So if you don't like you think the problem is, I have a diagnosis. Now I need to do something to fix that. And I'll go to this vet maybe, or that vet maybe, or that specialist, or whatever you might do. But a lot of people come to me sort of that last port of call. Like, I've tried this, and this. Somebody told me that you could do a thing with that. Can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, but I wish you came to me 3 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever, right? Like, what?
Because you don't know you have the problem until you have the problem. But the problem's already there. So what is the problem?
So the problem is not that you have a diagnosis, although that's a horrific thing. The problem is that you weren't doing the right things to prevent in the first place. And if you do the right things to prevent in the first place, you simply do not get the disease. Like, why do we not have an army of people going, give me the prevention stuff? Right? How do I build it into the day? How do I build it into the life?
It's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, and that's the problem. Most people don't know how much power they do have over their health.
Yeah,
Most people don't know what they can be doing. A lot of people think that it has to be a drastic overhaul, mass, and it really doesn't. But you don't know what those little things are that you can do until you have someone helping you kind of along that journey. And I say someone helping you because it's just a lot easier that way.
Yeah, because you remember when you were doing that before we were talking, right? Before you and I met, when you had a thing that you were trying to figure out, it's a lot of legwork. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of time spent asking questions and figuring out, is this source reliable? Is this a solid scientific paper? Has this been funded by the company that's now selling the thing? Like, there's a whole bunch of questions, right? And then do you understand the scientific terms? So for the lay person, it's a very overwhelming zone to get, and it's not even a familiar place. Like regenerative medicine, ask people on the street, what's regenerative medicine?
I told someone the other day that I practice, that I'm a functional medicine dietitian, and she was like, a feng shui dietitian? And I was like, bless you.
That's so cool.
That's a thing, but I'm interested. Maybe we should create that. Like, it's just, these are terms that people haven't heard and don't know.
Yeah. So you're not even familiar with the context or the container of what that is to have any confidence to go and investigate that yourself, right? It's like me trying to teach myself how to speak Swahili, right? Where do I even begin? Like, I know zero. How do I begin, and how do I make progress, and how do I know that I haven't gone down the wrong pathway and I've learned some kind of side dialect of Swahili that is like 500 years old and no one speaks it anymore? Like that, like I wouldn't know. So you have to have a guide that can take you through and just speed that up. And that should be a fun experience, right? And it should be fun because you're no longer feeling like my brain's going to explode, but also fun because you start to see results almost immediately, and then that gives you the momentum and the confidence to go, hey, this stuff is working, it's making a difference.
So for folks who are listening, so we have quite a few people who are tuning in right now. I'm interested.
Hey everyone.
I want to hear from you guys. So we're basically, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the fact that most people don't start making changes for their health, for their pet's health, until they start seeing symptoms. And the problem is that you don't know what you don't know. Like you might not have known beforehand that there was so much you could have done. And so I'm interested, for folks who are listening, like, how did you get into this? How did you how did you join Pet and Parent? And, I'm assuming you found us through someone else. Like, how did you kind of enter this world of functional, holistic, regenerative approach to health? Was it preventatively, just because you knew that you wanted to set yourself or your pet up for success? Or was it based on a symptom that you were already seeing? And if you guys type in comments, we can see them here. Let's have a discussion around it, because we've talked about this before. We talked about this a couple of weeks, but like, this stuff also isn't taught in school. So where are you going to learn it if your parents don't talk about it, if your culture isn't really talking about it, your community? And you're only supposed to see your doctor, your vet, or your healthcare provider when you're sick. Who's talking about the preventative stuff? Who's talking about the longevity stuff, right? You're really just putting out the fires. And this is definitely kind of what I ran into in my own health journey. And it's a disservice. But I guess that's what we're trying to do, right? Is let people know that you don't have to wait, and really don't wait. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but like, please don't wait. Like it'll
I mean, there's a couple of layers here, right? So we all know that we're all in love with our family and love with our pets, and we want the best for them. And we all know that we tend to neglect ourselves. So that's one layer, right? So we always need that big brother or that pet parent or somebody to sort of nurture us and push us forward into that space of you matter too, make sure it includes you. So there's that. There's you think the problem is the health condition that you're facing. You think the problem is low energy. You think the problem is some weird rash. You think the problem is starting to get lame in one leg. You think the problem is yeasty ears. You think the problem is, right? A cancer diagnosis if it's a really bad one, right? These are the things you think the problem is. And yes, they are issues that need to be dealt with. But the problem is that the body was not being nurtured and protected on a cellular level to be able to push back that symptom, that disease. And if you're in the room right now, just put in the chat there, prevention or I don't know, treatment or therapy or something, right? And then let us see, like, who came into this world because they were wanting to do prevention, because they already knew stuff about longevity. They already knew what was possible with functional regenerative medicine. They already knew that the dog's immune system or the cat's or your own immune system has the capacity to fight off everything. If you already knew that and you're here for prevention, you're creating that, I'm going to get rid of everything and address the real root cause, just pop prevention in the chat. But if you came into this world and were, I've got to solve a problem, maybe these girls can help me introduce to people that know it, have the information, then pop symptom in the chat there, and we can see then, and there's no shame in that. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
While we talk about like personal power, right? There's so much you can do, and personal responsibility, right? There's so much that you can do for your pet, for your own health. It's not your fault if you don't know. You know what
Correct.
I mean? Like,
correct.
I mean, I came into this world. I think every functional medicine provider came into this world because they had their own symptoms, they had their own health conditions, and they were being let down by the conventional model. So like, there's absolutely no shame in it. I mean, oh my God, you're here. This is the important thing. Our point is, most people don't even know beforehand. And that's the problem, that we don't know. We're not talking about it enough. So we have someone chiming in and saying, yeah, they came into this for symptoms too. Absolutely. Because if you're not needing to tap into the model, you're not realizing that it's broken. You're not realizing that there's something that you don't know. There's something that you're missing. And you're not realizing that there are a lot of insults to our body every day, from our food, from the toxins, from just kind of the modern lifestyle that we live. But now you know. And when you know, you can't unknow. Know like a million times today. And that's where that responsibility comes in. And I kind of want to gently push on people and say, also responsibility for yourself, to take care of yourself. That is a responsibility, because other people see that. I mean, first of all, you deserve it. Second of all, other people see that. Like, majorly. I can't tell you, Penny, from like, obviously when you told me about Raw and all that, and I switched my dog, I don't know, maybe half a dozen of my friends and family members have already switched their pets to Raw, like, because of that, right? It sets the example. And when you do something that other people don't do, at first it's like, what is this weird thing that's happening? I mean, I had never even heard of Raw. Like, in my communities that I'm in, like, that's not even a thing. So when I switched to raw, my friends are like, what are you doing? Like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Like, you're going to die of bacteria or whatever, and your dogs are going to, and then they're like, I had family visiting this weekend and they were petting Peanut and they were like, oh my God, her fur. It's so soft, right? Like, people see it and then they're like, oh, that makes sense. Same thing with the essential oils, you know, when I do them with Peanut and I have people over and, you know, we do them regularly. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And people are like, what is that garlic smell? Oh my God. And then, you know, you see the outcomes. And where was I going with this? You have a responsibility, if you know, to do the things, to take care of yourself, to take care of, you know, whoever it is, whether, you know, they have 2 legs or 4 around you. You're going to benefit. And honestly, the people around you benefit. And that's how we start a movement.
Yeah, it is being an ambassador, right? And it's, you know, the same things happen to me. Like, people say, why are you so happy all the time? And I go, well, I didn't know that I was until you kind of pointed it out, because it's just my normal kind of thing. But you're always smiling, you're always like this. And I'm like, I'm probably thinking about animals, to be honest, you know? So it's just like, maybe you just think about animals more often and you'll be happy too. But like genuinely, because I'm living you know, I can't remember the last time I was sick, like literally, you know, and in the UK, getting a GP is different from getting a GP in Australia, right? GP is your general practitioner. I don't know if you call them GPs in America, but anyway, so yeah, okay, but you know, you have to kind of like register with a clinic and be accepted into what it's anyway. And so I did all of that, like probably a couple of years after I arrived here. Because I thought, well, we may as well be sensible and have something there for when I need it. And in the 10 or 12 years that I've been here, I've gone twice, right? Because I just don't get sick, you know. It just and that's because I'm living what I practice, and I'm giving my pets what I practice. And so the only time they go to the vet is for preventative, like a blood test, like let's check your bloods. And I don't have a blood spinning machine here in pathology lab next door to me to just do that myself. So we go and get bloods and go do a screening of that, right? But they're not getting what they don't need, right? But they're not getting sick. And when you can say that, hand on heart, I can show you the medical records, right? Birthday, like, you know, three weeks old kind of thing. And then there's this massive time gap, and then there's this, you know, so it's so livable and achievable to be that ambassador and to solve those problems for yourself. Think of the money that I've saved by not going to the doctor and a vet, right? And it's not a case of not going because you know, oh, I needed to, but I couldn't get an appointment, or I needed to, but I couldn't afford it, or I needed to, but whatever, right? I didn't need to. So maybe that's not the world's greatest example. Maybe I should be going more often and getting a screening thing. But
well, I was going to say, yeah, just like you said for your pets, I think that there's a lot of value in having a relationship with someone that I mean, we talk about this a lot, that has an alignment with your values. So if your values are preventative, get a GP who their values are also preventative. You know, online, oftentimes they'll have a little bio, like of things they specialize in or things that really speak to their heart. And you can find someone who says preventative and make an appointment with them and establish so that if something does happen, you know, you do have that connection. And also, you can do things like preventative labs. If you decide to work with another healthcare practitioner, they can collaborate, right? Because oftentimes GPs are the only ones who can actually order labs. So like I do this a lot with patients I work with, where I'll say, these are the labs that would be really helpful for me to see from my standpoint, coming at it from my perspective. And then I'll collaborate with their GP, and their GP will order it because their insurance is more likely to cover if their GP orders versus so it's nice to have like a team there. And also, again, if there's something, whether it's a sickness or an emergency situation, because emergencies do happen, then you do have someone there. I don't know if I shared this publicly with the community, about how long ago was this? Back in November, I had a life-threatening situation happen. I didn't know that it was happening. It was something that was not really preventable. It you know, an accident, if you will, something along those lines. And I had internal bleeding and I didn't know. And I went to the emergency room, thankfully. And it was a pretty scary situation. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know any of the practitioners. I didn't have any, I've lived here for 2 years. And again, I don't go to the doctor either. So I hadn't established care. Thankfully, I had insurance and I had to get emergency surgery and be hospitalized. And thankfully I'm here. But that's an example really of what not to do, because it is better if you do have a team. It would have been less scary going into that situation, knowing, okay, I have a practitioner who knows my history, who I can trust. I like them. I know them. They can help support me in this situation. If I wasn't a healthcare practitioner, if I didn't know what to ask for and the terms that were being talked about, and the surgery that I was going to need to have, like all of that, that would have been terrifying. Like it was already like someone's like one of the practitioners, when they followed up a couple days later, said like, I'm so glad I'm speaking to you right now because like we thought you might have died. Like it was a very scary situation. And going into any of those situations, because they can happen, feeling like you know what's going on is really important. So I felt pretty equipped myself to kind of that, but if you're not in that world, having someone else who you feel like can help break it down for you, can help explain it to you, can help support you, that is really key. So I don't know how I got down this rabbit hole, but yeah.
But it's part of that building a better health destiny, right? You'll hear me say that a few times, right? Because you really can. Like, this isn't a roll of the dice. This is you being in the driver's seat and saying, this is the health destiny I want. I would like a healthcare team who I'm in a relationship with, who know me. Like, you watch period dramas, right? And there's always a doctor because someone's always getting sick and dying, right? But especially murder mysteries or whatever, right? But there's always a family doctor. Like, they're usually old with mutton chop whiskers and a briefcase and a top hat, right? They're in a period drama, right? But they're the family doctor for 9 generations almost, right? They know everybody's condition. They know what exactly to put in the doctor's bag when they come out and do the house call, because they're familiar, and they all, they get invited to Sunday lunch because they're all like, they know each other. So having being able to go back in time, maybe no, but realistically, having your own healthcare, somebody, even if it's one person, doesn't have to be a team of 8, but like, depending on how complicated your medical situations are, right, you might want more than one, but having somebody that you have a true friendship, connection, trust-based something with, who knows your story and will go into bat for you. Like, there's been a few clients who will ring me up out of the blue. Like, it's not like we're having an appointment. Ring me up. This is where I am right now, like emergency room or with the vet or on the floor with the dog or whatever it is. Like, what do I do? What's your advice? Here's the information. And I'm like, I will accept those calls, right? As in when as soon as I can. But like, I'm very happy to accept those calls because I know what it's like to have the support in that moment of crisis. And if I can give that support in that moment of crisis, then that means everything. And that can be the difference. It doesn't have to be me, right? I'm just saying I do that. But if you have someone who can be that person for you, who can direct and say, ask the vet this, ask the doctor that. They're suggesting this. Okay, is it this version or is it that version? Is it the long lasting or is it the 24-hour? Is it the, do you know what I mean? Like, and then you know that you're being loved and can make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Along those lines of preventive, because that's kind of one aspect of being prepared, right? And I don't know why I hadn't thought of this before, but just kind of talking about this experience that I had made me think of the fact that the preventative approach was actually relevant in that emergency situation too, because I forgot about this. When I was in the emergency room and they realized that I was like bleeding inside, like had internal bleeding, they said, we don't know how you're functioning right now. Like, the average person right now would be in excruciating pain, would be like not functioning and their vitals would have crashed. They're like, we don't know how you have stable vitals. Like you seem fine from the outside. Your blood pressure's okay. Your heart rate's okay. You're right. Like everything looks okay. And yet you have internal bleeding. And so even to your point, what you said earlier, it's essentially equipping your body so that when these insults do happen, whether it's an illness or an accident, emergency kind of assault, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either way, your body's more equipped to handle it.
You raised such a critical point, which is easily overlooked. And you're absolutely right? Because when your immune system is optimized, when your immune system is working as it should do, because it has the support, it has the nourishment, you are detoxifying, you are moving your body and whatever, right? When it is optimized, there's 1,000 insults and things that come at you that you will never know that you defeated because it just did it before anything was manifesting and anything was noticeable in the first place, right? But to your point, when something big does come along, it can be the difference between life and death. It can be the difference between recovering and going home the next day or spending 3 months in hospital. It can be the difference between how well do you heal and regain full functionality of whatever it was, or are you permanently now in some way impaired, right? And we were talking about this with Pippin, right? I was talking with Elliot when we were at the vet with his, because Pippin had his little crisis moment and was bleeding everywhere last weekend or whatever. And I was like, lucky he's raw fed. Lucky he's like in full optimal condition. Lucky he's got all of his climbing muscles in the front arms and chest area here so that he had a thicker muscular layer over his body so that wound, yes, it went in and went deep, but it didn't get to anything vital because he's got a proper musculature on him, right? I said, lucky that, because imagine he was a biscuit boy, right? And he's just not in tip-top condition. Maybe his blood wouldn't have clotted so well. Maybe there's 100 things but I mean, there's so many variables. But the thing is, I know that he bounced back from that, and he literally bounced back from that. Got him home. He was good as gold. Stuck the green clay on him to draw any toxins and nasties out of the wound. The wound healed up in 5 minutes. You can't even see it anymore. There was no swelling. There's no raggedy edges. There was no pus, funny smell. He didn't even need stitches in the end because it was a puncture rather than a gash. So he's got out of it literally scot-free. But what that could have been, A, if I didn't know first aid, and B, if he hadn't have been a raw boy, right? It's just...
A raw boy or a biscuit boy? That's really funny for some reason. The takeaway is really your body is every single day we're faced with all of the things. And whether or not you're prepared, whether or not you're doing the things beforehand is going to, in large part, determine how ill you get, how well you recover. And if and when there are emergency situations, same thing applies. So it's not a matter of if. It's really not. I mean, we all have cancer cells developing in our body every day. It's not a matter of if these things happen. It's a matter of how is your body going to fight it off, and will it become a problem?
Yeah. Oh, glad we recorded that bit. That was good.
Let's end it there. All right. Well, live and unplugged. So we're having these conversations twice a week. When we send out we send out emails that say hey, we're live. And I wish we could put more on there. This is what we're talking about today. But
we never know.
We're what's on your mind? Right before we go live, we're what's on your mind? And then we just talk about it. So, hopefully this is resonating with you. I think it is because we have people joining us live for half an hour. So bless you for doing that.
We really do talk that long as well. That felt
we're just doing lives. We'll just chat for 10 minutes, and then it's 20 minutes, and it's 30 minutes, and it's okay, let's log off now. But this is really important stuff. It really is, which is why it's so easy to talk about it. So yeah, let us know how this is landing for you. Subscribe on YouTube if you're really enjoying these. Subscribe on YouTube, and you'll be notified every time we do one of these or post anything else. We have some other stuff coming up, so get notified about that. What else? Anything else?
That's probably it for now. We'll think of other things for tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, 9:30-ish a.m.
Eastern
Eastern.
and 2:30-ish British time.
All right, until then.